Even if you are making a good income here in Connecticut, chances are you cannot afford the home you dream of. A new study from the Partnership for Strong Communities in Hartford finds that households earning the median income of $65,000 last year could not afford to buy a house at the median price in 112 of Connecticut's 169 towns and cities, or about two-thirds of the state. The most affordable cities and towns include Hartford and Waterbury. The least affordable were in Fairfield County. I asked the partnership's policy director why that is and what can be done about it. Thanks, David, for being here. Let's start off, if you would, summarizing the report as far as the key points in terms of affordability of houses.
Well, the fact is that Connecticut is still a very expensive place to buy a home. And the reason is there's not enough supply. Connecticut is 48th in the country since 2000 in the number of units built per capita. We just haven't built much housing, and anybody who's taken any economics knows that if you don't have enough supply to meet the demand, the price goes up or stays high. It was compounded by the fact, and the report showed, that personal income fell over the last year. So people didn't have as much income to buy a house, and therefore the gap between what they could buy and what was affordable widened. And so it's difficult. Someone making the state median household income of about $65,000 for a household can't qualify for mortgage in 112 of the 169 cities and towns, so about two-thirds.
And that's interesting, because $65,000 is a lot of money, first of all. It's a good income to be making. But why is it that the supply is low? Maybe it's like a case of the chicken or the egg. Maybe builders aren't building because they know that people can't afford houses.
Well, needless to say, the economy has kept builders from building a little, but a lot of builders can get loans. I think that the issue for the supply is that the housing market is changing. People can't afford the big 4- and 5-bedroom McMansions anymore. People are going to want smaller homes. They're less costly to start. They're less costly to heat. They're going to want them in walkable locations. They're going to want them near transit, train stations, bus stations. And over the last decade, we haven't built any of that. Mm-hmm. And so the whole notion here is that towns have to allow builders to spread their land cost over more units. They need to be able to put more units on an acre. In other words, more dense housing. So in a lot of cities, young reporters, young nurses, teachers, police officers, firefighters, they want to live in an apartment, or they want to live in a townhouse or a condo. They don't want to mow a big lawn. Right. They don't want to heat a big house. Towns are not used to that here. We do have an opportunity for that, though, because with the busway, with the rail line, those are places to put housing. If you put housing near a bus station or a rail station, no one cares as much about the density. It's not messing up a neighborhood. It's a great place to live. You don't take your car to work. You take the bus. You take the train. You come home. You go upstairs. You put on your jeans. You come down to the bar down there and have a burger and a beer and see your friends. That's the way life is in New York, in Boston, and that's the way life could be here. And that's the kind of housing that people are going to want.
But are we seeing that is the way that housing will be, whether people want that or not? Or?
Well, I think the towns are getting the message. They don't yet understand that because the market's changed, because heating and transportation costs are going up, because older people are going to want a smaller place. They want to downsize. So there's going to be a market from them for smaller places, because young professionals want smaller places. Their idea of a big house on 1 acre with a white picket fence is not so much what they want. They don't recognize that the market's changing. And I think the other really important thing, and we saw this with affordability, is with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac soon to be replaced, and banks wanting more in the way of down payments, people are going to have to put 15 or 20% down on a house. So even on a $300,000 house, that means you'd have to come up with $45,000 to $60,000.
Right.
That's a lot of cash.
How many people come up with that?
Not a lot.
No.
And that's the problem we have in Connecticut with our loss of 25 to 34-year-old population. We're first in the nation in loss of 25 to 34-year-old population since 1990. And the reason is that people can't find here the kind of housing they need, and so they move elsewhere to get it.
Couldn't there be a movement to build, I guess what they call, I grew up in South Windsor, and they had a bunch of what they called GI houses, those little capes,
sure.
Really tiny. With that, couldn't there be a move to build like that kind of thing?
Yeah, you can do that, but the towns have to allow the density, because if you're a builder and you have to spend in South Windsor $200,000 for a nice 1-acre lot, you're not going to put a small little home on it and then ask $250,000 for it, because you lose money on the deal. You have to, at that point, if you're spending that much for the land, you have to put $200,000 worth of materials and labor on it, and then try to sell it for $450,000. There's no market right now for $450,000 homes. Those homes aren't moving. $350,000 and below are selling now. And the large home, very large homes, $600,000-700,000, rich people can afford to still buy homes.
So there's a big debate, obviously, over the busway. So home builders, I guess, are in favor of that because it will spur on. Yeah,
I think
development.
They transit people, the people who understand the housing markets, young people, older people. They get the idea that around a rail station, around a busway station, that's a good place to live. You can sell one of your cars. You don't need 2 cars. You don't have to take the 1 car you still have, because you can get her back and forth to work. And it's it's a great place to be able to put the density, because again, those nice people in South Windsor who bought there because they like their neighborhood, we're not going to look to put higher density in that neighborhood. You put it near a station, and that's where it works.
What do you think are the effects of having a lack of affordable housing?
Well, I think,
aside from the fact that people can't have a house.
I think you have an exodus of young
people,
professionals and families. It very much hurts low and moderate income people. Here's an amazing statistic. We have about 400,000 renting households in the state. 100,000 of them spend more than 50% of their income on housing.
Wow.
And they only earn 50% of median income. So they have no money left over. And those people are this close to homelessness. So if you don't have affordable housing, people are spending way too much for their housing. They have very little left over, and that's bad for the economy generally. They have less to spend. Merchants buying cars, buying washers and computers, and so it hurts the economy generally if people have to spend too much for housing.
And you were also mentioning that it affects economic development, attracting businesses to the state.
Sure, because if you're an employer, if you want to come here, you want to know that you can meet your expenses, including labor, and still make a profit. If you have to spend a lot of money on labor because you have to pay people enough to buy a home that they can afford, you're not going to come here. You're going to go to places where housing doesn't cost as much. And so we need, along that spectrum of, the $3 million house down to the very, very, very affordable rental. We need more options along that array of housing.
And so the last question, so the solution is to work with towns to create...
Yeah, and I think the state has to play an energetic role. The state has to help towns. I have talked to over 100 mayors and first selectmen. They know they need more housing options for their police and teachers and firemen. But the towns need help, and then the towns do have to kind of understand that the market's changing and they need more density and more affordable units.
Interesting. So if people want to see this report and maybe look around in their town, they would go to what? Where do they go?
pschousing.org. Partnership for Strong Communities website, pschousing.org.
Excellent. Thanks, David.
Sure.
Our thanks to you, David Fink of Partnership for Strong Communities. Don't forget, if you missed something here on The Real Story, you can now watch it online by going to ctnow.com. You can also catch us on YouTube. Thanks for watching this week's edition of The Real Story. I'll see you here again next week.